Okay, welcome to the Single Dad Project, where today and the whole month of May, we are interviewing single moms. Some of the moms aren't anymore, like my guest today, but I'm excited to get this started because it's going to give us perspective as single dads on what the single mom experience was like. And my guest today, Heidi, we go way back. We go way back to like 1997. Yes. Heidi and I shot a feature film together. I was directing it. She was our actress. And over the years, we've stayed in touch through the little ups and downs in life. Mm-hmm. Heidi went off to California to be Miss Actress, but ended up getting into the catering services. I'm sure you could tell me more about that. Behind the scenes, yeah. Yep. Built a couple of little businesses on that. I don't know if you want to mention the names of the businesses. Heidi, I'll let you do all that on your own side. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of years ago, Heidi started a podcast called the Human Experience Hangout. And was I your first guest? No.
You were.
Shut up. For real? I was the first guest. Oh my gosh. So we shot a few little episodes of that, and I was excited to do that podcast with her because for me, I felt like I was leaving on video a little time capsule for my daughter. And it's still the reason why I do anything is I want to leave something for my kids. So this show is part of that reason. Awesome. So I'm super excited to get started here with Heidi today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. So proud of you. I love this. Congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you. So I'd like to start kind of like a little bit of history. We don't have to go into super crazy details if you don't want to, but sure. what's if I could start anywhere, what were the thoughts when when we're younger, when people are like, hey, what are your, when you have kids, what do you want? Like, I remember before my daughter was born, people are like, you want a boy, you want a girl? And I'm like, I don't care. I just want a healthy baby. Yeah. Before any of that happened, like when the kids actually came into the picture, what were thoughts going through your head about motherhood, being a mom, raising kids, sure. Anything like that?
I was so excited. I knew I was going to be a mother. I also wanted to be a teacher. Like, I just knew I needed to work with kids, be with kids. I have childlike personality, not shy with the kid thing, but I was also really into like entertainment and theater. And so I was always kind of doing both. I would always be a babysitter, a nanny. I worked in the schools in Chicago while auditioning and doing commercials and things. So, just nurturing children was in my blood. And I did have a very nurturing parent. My mother was a stay-at-home mother, and she's of the last of her generation, really, where the age, the June Cleaver almost, dinner at the same time every day. Like, you were guaranteed your mom was there and ready and available for you. And dad was providing. And that was our household. And we moved around a lot, but that was always constant. And so I just knew one day I'd have kids. And I dreamt of, especially when the Barbie set came out, the Hart family, I'm like, oh, the boy and a girl, one of each. And have them today. So I just knew it would happen. I just didn't know how, and I didn't know when. I always thought I'd marry my high school sweetheart, and I was going this route. I will add, I just thought of it. I should add a little tragedy here, if you're ready for off the bat.
Of course.
So when I was 20 in college, I was raped, and I got pregnant, and I decided not to keep it. And that was because I'm like, I always wanted to be a parent. This is crazy. But I didn't know if my Irish guilt was coming from shame of being pregnant by some, I didn't want to have a child with, / was it the fact I got pregnant before I graduated college? Like, I just thought I was bringing shame on the family. And I also knew I wasn't time, like something intuitive. I'm like, this isn't time. But I really went through this tragedy but I was always, since a little girl, I was supposed to be a parent. And then in those decisions of, well, this was traumatic. And I kind of like mind wiped myself. I didn't tell anybody. I failed out of school after. I didn't keep the child. And I started going a little bit downhill. I didn't even think I was going to share that. That just came up. But I'm like, I have to share that part of the journey because when we get into the spiritual talk, to me, that's my third. There's a little angel. Mm-hmm. But I was hell bent on having that formula. The mom, the dad, the child. And this wasn't it. I was a student. That was not a good experience at all. I was really traumatized and my body shifted and everything. So I just knocked it out. I'm like, well, that didn't happen. And I ignored it forever. So cut to maybe 50, how many years later? Probably 10 years later, I think it was. Wait, that was 94, 95. Just about 10 years later, I wound up marrying someone out here in California, Mark, and we had a really nice relationship. And he was the guy that I was picturing to have this little nuclear family with, you know, the commercial family you see and the provider and the mom, but something was eating me up. I wasn't finished with my goals. I wasn't done yet. And I wasn't ready to be pregnant and all that involved with our bodies and it's really like a 2 to 3 year time that a woman's complete body just takes over for this baby. I wasn't ready. And I was kind of like upset at myself, like, well, wait a minute, this is what you always want to do, but no, not now. Our marriage dissolved. We remained friends, but I then really hit my dreams hard. I was crossing off the bucket list. I'm like, well, if I just turn down 2 opportunities to be a mom, I better get shit done. So I hustled. And I really hustled. I created a really successful business. It was, I started, you know, in front of the camera, and then 15 years I had a successful craft service behind the camera. It's like the snacks on set. And I had really A-list clients and developed a team and, you know, was making money and I was living it up. I was living my best life and kind of blocking out some things. And then wait, what was your question? How did it start? I'm telling you the whole timeline.
Yeah, no, it was getting into the history of
that is, yeah. See, I told you.
What were your thoughts before, you know, actually being a mother? And the thing is, I didn't know about the rape situation.
Yeah, I'm pretty blunt about it now.
News to me.
That's why I went downhill during filming. You know, I was a little.
So I was. That was during.
Well, it was before it, but I wasn't taking care of my body. I was numbing, escaping.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. It's funny when you. I'm not saying funny, but it's just the words that come out. It's interesting to me that when we did your podcast, one of the things that we talked about was like all the craziness that happened in our lives, and hearing you talk about that now, it makes me think like, was that what led to all of the, you know, the partying and all the. It had
a lot to do with it.
So.
Yeah, I just wasn't, because it was such shame for myself that I really buried it good. Honestly, the giant today, how I started getting it out is hearing stories about the place that I did it at and stuff. Like I just was able to let it go. So honestly, I did not know this was going to happen. It was like my little download before you just asked me the question. I'm like, well, don't forget about this story. I was like, oh my gosh, because it did that maternal that I was going to be got tested. So my bit of cutting to then becoming, wait, did you ask another question?
You're like,
I know. I didn't even have any coffee.
You were going from, and we could stay on this track. You were going.
I was married and then divorced.
Building your business in LA. Mm-hmm. So we went from the marriage dissolving to your focused on your career, and then
what happened was I started dating. I was dating a lot. I wasn't like a hussy, but I also, when I was married and there was this talk about pregnancy, honestly, I felt like there was something wrong with me because there were moments where we tried and I'm like, well, I don't think I can. You know, I think that's what's going to happen. I did that to myself at that young age. Maybe then I'm not supposed to have one anymore. So I was a little reckless. And I was courted by this one fella for a couple years on set. And he would always ask me out. But I was one at a time kind of gal. And every time I worked with him, I happened to have been, well, I'm kind of interested in this guy. No, thank you. Well, I ran into him on set. This is 2009. And I hadn't seen him for like a year. And I was like, where have you been? He's like, oh, I got injured, you know, and union jobs I couldn't be on. And I'm like, well, you haven't asked me anything. And then he's like, what am I supposed to ask you? I'm like, well, I'm single now. And he's like, oh my God, you want to go out? Da, 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 da. I can't believe it. It's here. And I'm like, sure. I know, like, I'm free this weekend. And he starts checking his calendar. This should have been my first red flag. Checking his calendar. And he's like, well, how about next month on this? And I'm like, you're really busy. Anyway, we made these future dates like 2 or 3 times, one involving me bringing my friends to Vegas and him and his friends being there. And we had a great time. He was still also very what I was picturing with in my younger days. He wasn't like, he didn't approach me too much. He wasn't sleazy. He was like in the suit in Vegas. He held my hand, but he asked if he could kiss my cheek. Like, it seemed romantic. He wasn't pushing himself on me. So I was really liking that. So we had a cute, quick, but a small courtship. And then there was my birthday, and I was secretly waiting for someone to ask me out, and he didn't call. So I called this guy, and I'm like, hey, I know, you want to go out? You said you want to take me out for birthday. Let's go whoop it up. And we whooped it up, and we tied one on, and that was the night my daughter was conceived. And so the thing is, when I found out about her, I could feel the symptoms and all that. I was like, it's time. Like, I can't believe this is my child. Like, that's the woo where I was like immediately connected. I was 35. I was making money. I had a really good group of girlfriends. My parents were proud of me. And I was like, I got this. But this guy I wasn't so sure about, but I was really very much in my own feminine, like I was in my own boss way. So I told him, I'm like, listen, this is like a after school special. I go, don't worry, I got this on my own. My girlfriends, my parents, everybody, I'm not even going to, you don't have to do a thing. I got this. But this is my child, and I'm going to keep this child. And he goes, oh, no. I've been chasing you for years. I'm going to be a part of this. I can't wait to be a part of this. I just forgot to tell you something. And I'm like, well, what'd you forget to tell me? He goes, well, I'm still legally married with 3 children. And I was like, I go, I've known you for years. We partied at Vegas. Like, how do I not know this? So that would have been my first red flag to leave. However, this is more the spiritual. I had this little voice saying, make it work. And honestly, there's going to be a couple of these points I'm going to hit. Had I walked away when I wanted to, like when anyone who listens would be like, that's when you go out the door, I wouldn't have had my son, number 2. So there was a reason we were supposed to be together in that sense. So I told him, and I went in full mama bear protective mode. So did my friends. So did my family. They were like, what is going on here? And I just wanted to protect this growing baby. So I kind of filtered everything out and tried to make it work. And I said, I'm going to be that turnaround story. I'm not going to be the hussy that got pregnant. You're like, I'm going to make this work. And so then he moved into my place. Then we moved into a new place before my daughter was born. And I was like, oh, I think we can do this. I met the other children he had. I started helping them with their holidays and giving them Easter baskets. Like, I felt like, okay, this is going to work. This is going to happen. And then when the birth came, we didn't intend to get married either. And this is an Armenian family, and they still welcomed me. Like, this is old school Armenian in Hollywood, and they welcomed me. But I didn't intend to get married at that point. And so when my second red flag was giving birth. He showed up, and he was high, and he was cocaine high. And I thought I had to get a ride home from the hospital. And I remember calling my girlfriend saying that, and I heard her like quietly crying. Oh, I'm going to cry. And she was like, what are you doing? She's like, of course they'll come get you, but he should be there with you. And because he would be high, and then he'd leave, and then he'd high, just being weird. And I'm like, it's all right. I'm going to make it work. It's all good. I got this. And then we got home, and then a week later, he didn't show up. He didn't come home. He went clubbing. Like, that cycle started. It was the courtship, the pregnancy. I was like, oh yeah, this is going to work. It's going to work. But once that baby came, he stopped coming home. And that, with a new baby that I never had, he's had a couple, and being a new mom and all the changes. And I didn't have a mom that like breastfed or did all these things. And I wanted to try all these things. I didn't have a tribe yet or community. So I really went at it alone. I was dealing with the stress of him, with the stress of a newborn baby, and it was toxic. It was very difficult. I was putting on a happy face. I was showing up at the parties. I was doing all the right things, but I was was splitting myself. I was blocked. I felt like this is not how I thought it would go. And then cut to my daughter was 2, and we were like, what do we do here? He took us out for my birthday with my daughter, and he gave me a ring. And I just looked at him. He goes, no, we don't have to get married, but I want to make this work. And I was like, good, because I just found out I'm pregnant again. And here comes baby 2. And so, long story longer, I kind of the cycle of abuse, and I call it psychological abuse, not knowing when he's coming home, the lying. There was a lot of lying, a lot of drug and alcohol abuse that he would say he wasn't doing, but I know he was doing. I know the symptoms. I know what it is. And so when I had a 1-year-old and then a 3-year-old, I was losing my shit. And I did not have the help at home, period. And my girlfriends started dwindling away. They were single. They thought it was cute to have a baby around, but now she's got her hands full. Like, we don't know what to do anymore. So I was alone, and I was getting mad, very mad. And I went after him a lot. I was hard. I was angry. I was yelling, and this is in front of babies. And so their frequency, their nervous system was fried. And I remember having him swear on deceased family members, there's no drugs in this house, right? And he's like, absolutely. So I kept giving chances. And the change was when my son was like walking around, crawling around, doing what he can at 1. And my intuition was like, get to him. I saw him down the hallway. And I'm like, oh, he's crawling, walking. But everything in me started powering up. Like, it's this crazy feeling and said, get to him. And I ran to him, and he had a vial of cocaine in his hand. And, it's teething stage. And I lost it. Absolutely lost it. I locked the doors. I got my parents involved. I went to his family, Armenian school, old school family. And I said, he has a problem and he needs help. And I want to be a part of this. I want to help, but this is out of control. And they said, you forgive him every day and you look the other way. And I said, I wasn't raised that way. I can't do that. And that's when everything in me just went like, peace, like, I got this. And I walked away. And when I walked away, no one followed. No one checked in, no one called. And I said, okay, I was the one keeping that going. So he was in and out of our life because I felt like I was doing the right thing. He kind of kept coming around. I would say, hand him a $20. I'm like, Christmas is tomorrow. Just run to Target, get him something. I was forcing something to work when he did not want to step into mission of being a dad. And he was thinking he's a party boy still. And I watched the patterns of him with his 3 other children doing the same thing, disappointing them. I'll never forget, he was sleeping and he often slept past his alarm or not set his alarm. And there would always be this panic, like, oh, he's late. Well, I remember that his son had a meeting. He was starting high school in Burbank, and he wanted so bad to be on the football team. And I was cheering him on. I'm like, you are going to be so good at this. I can't wait. He goes, yeah, I just see my dad to take me to this meeting, this health meeting, the first one. I go, oh, you got this. It's all good. He's not working. He missed the alarm and he slept in. And I woke up, I knew what day it was, and I saw him there. And I was like, you just blew it for him. Like, how? And he had no remorse. And I was like, what am I trying? It's like wringing a rag that's dry. You can't get out of it what's really not in it. And so there was some empathy, but there was also this, like, how long am I going to keep us on this hamster wheel? So it took, I was going through depression. I was drinking wine. Like, I was really putting on a show while the back of my mind going absolutely ballistic. Like, I just really felt like things would change. I just really thought he would be a part of it. Am I talking too much again?
No. I'm super into the story because I knew parts of it over the years, obviously with our friendship, but I didn't know like these kind of details. And as you're talking, my mind is going to what we recorded last week, and the show is up today. I actually was able to get it up today. We
awesome.
had a little delay trying to get the shows out on Wednesday, but last week's show was about. So I started the podcast talking about your inner sphere as a single dad is you. The circle outside of that is your kids. The circle outside of that is the mother of your child. So that was the show last week, is talking about the mother of the child. And, you know, the way the universe, God works, everything was leading up to like, hey, we're going into May. We just did a show talking about how single dads, from my perspective, how I think single dads can empower themselves by having a better relationship with the mother of their children.
Yes.
So that's what that show is about. And going into May is like, you know, Mother's Day month. So, you know, I knew I wanted these interviews with single moms. And so I'm just hearing your story made me think about the stuff that we shot last week. And there's a part of me that's like, you know, I've got friends that are single dads, and obviously everybody's in a different situation. Everybody's got, you know, the goods and the bads, the ups and the downs. The part that's really hard for me as a dad to comprehend is somebody that just does not try.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah. I kept thinking
And
it would
now
shake
I-
off. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is I have to be fair, and I can't say a blanket statement like that. And I don't know the guy. I don't know what his situation
Right.
is. You know, like that's a little foo-foo spiritual side of me and you that we get into. We're like, but then we're like, oh wait, there's a spiritual
Yeah.
side of this where we're
Yeah.
like, maybe it's supposed to happen this
Yeah.
way, right? All that being said, it's still hard for me to comprehend how you bring life into this world, and for whatever reason you don't participate in it, even if it's just a little bit. And I think one of the things, I can't remember if I mentioned it last week, but one of the things that, at least in my situation with my ex, she was like, I don't really want anything from you. I don't need anything from you, technically. Just be there for her, our daughter. Just be there for her. And she says, if you fuck that up, that's on you. And I took that
Took it
100%.
yes.
Took it serious.
Yes.
So, and I wanted you to kind of tell your story anyway. So, and a lot of it hits with the segments that we talk about in the show, the spiritual side, the relational side, all that kind of stuff. So I want to kind of start getting into
Yes.
that aspect of it. On the spiritual side, you had mentioned in the story that you just shared right now, and thank you for sharing.
I
That's
know
like
it was
a
too
lot
long.
of
I'm
courage.
sorry. It was a lot.
No.
I
it's
don't want to
not-
paint a
it's not
bad
long.
picture from either, but you're right. It was not stepping into
But
the
here's- and-
position
and-
is a position. You choose not to
Yeah,
step
and
into
here's
it.
right. And here's the thing: you know, the audience that I'm trying to build is single dads who are struggling with one of these 6. I call them projects. The AI keeps calling them pillars, but when I do my little outlines, but for me, I call it a project because it's like you want to put effort into this thing, whatever it is, whether it's financial, whether it's your own health, working out, whether it's, you know, trying to run or start a business or your career. And so the audience that I'm trying to build is the single father, single dad audience. But I also think within that aspect, it's important to understand what the mother of our children are going through. Like, what's your experience? What are your struggles? That's one of the things that we talked about in last week's show is I try to do like, okay, here's a problem maybe, and here's the solution, and the solution is the exercise. Like in the project, here's the exercise. So in the show last week, one of the exercises is like to step into the mom's shoes. Like, what is, I called it the perspective shift. Like, what are you as a dad, as a man, take myself out of it. Just like, even if the exercise is in your own head, you don't have to like deal with the mom or whatever. This is just a personal thought experiment. And it's like, what's the perspective that she is experiencing? What are the struggles? What are the challenges? What are the stresses? What are the happy moments? Like, put yourself in the shoes of your mom, and I think as men, single dads, if we start doing that, things change. Because then it's like, it's not about me all the time. And you get to see, at least in your mind, the reasons why the mother of your children may like treat you like an asshole, explode on you, and all, and like
yeah.
you know, one of the things I mentioned also last week is the mom in the situation that we're finding ourselves in is trying to be the dad also.
That was my next bit. Yeah.
And I mentioned in the show that even when when I read stuff about couples that have 50-50 custody, the mom is still trying to be mom and dad. And that takes away from, like, you and I talk about this when we talk about this often, is the energies, the spiritual side. So when I don't think most people really get into this level of it, but on the energy side, the mom, nurturing, feminine,
the divine
that's
feminine.
got nothing to do with the masculine, like discipline, focus, blah, blah, blah. Let the dad handle that. So that's the reason why I bring up this perspective shift, because for us guys as single dads, I think it's important to go, okay, what is she facing? What is she challenged with? And how can I alleviate that? I mean, we may be arguing about stupid shit, but at the very least, if I help the energy, then it balances the energy for our kids or our kid. And so that's why I say I thank you for sharing your story, and it takes a lot of courage to go down that road.
That's sweet. Thank you, Rick. Yeah, it made me to make it such about the pre-leading, because I didn't even hit the single. But it came, the reality is that I had to own that I was allowing this to happen. I allowed him to go, to in and out, not show up. I kept us in that loop. So when I finally went like this, I go, well, you come when you're ready. And it was like once every few months, I was like, you know what? At least I'm not struggling anymore to make something happen that's not going to happen. And then I just focused on being a single mom, and it almost alleviated pressure. It was a lot more pressure, but I could let him go and be like, we're here. I moved us to a house. Like, we're here. I have an open book. I don't talk curt about him in front of them. You let me know when this is going to work. And then it became a roller coaster in that sense. But I did have to own the fact that I was allowing that cycle of abuse. There's only so many times a friend could hear you having a story like that they don't know how to support it anymore, because you just keep letting them come back in. When I wasn't like locking the door, but I was like, I'm starting over and I'm going to do it by myself. And, taller when you want to connect with them. And then, So
let's jump into, and PJ, let me know if we're running like crazy long.
Sorry. PJ, thanks,
but I want to, no, you're good, Heidi. I think, like I said, I think this is an important conversation to have. A lot of the stuff that I happen to stumble upon online and through some of the conversations I have with friends is, it's always like you get the one side of the story. Like, I got friends that are single moms. I got friends that are single dads.
But you always get that one side. Yep.
That you always get that one side.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. And it's the single dad side, or it's the single mom side, and we got to have sympathy for one or the other. And I think it's an important discussion to try to bridge that gap.
Yes. Beautiful.
That's why I wanted to have this. And by the way, next month we're doing the single dad interviews. So for the month of June, that's coming up. But let's get into like the spiritual side of the segments that I talk about. And for me, the spiritual side is not necessarily religion. It can be. I said in the show, I don't go to church every day. I do, glance at the Bible or look stuff up online about Bible verses here and there and things like that. But for me, it's gathering the wisdom and the insights of what that book or other books in that category talk about. and how can I use that information to help me in my life? And so with the spiritual side, what are the things, as when you were in the single mom mode, what are the things that you felt helped you get out of the chaos and out of the craziness that you were experiencing?
I truly, like, I'm glad you brought up that feminine masculine thing, because the divine feminine and the divine masculine needs to be balanced. And being imbalanced and trying to be both, I lost a little bit of myself. Like, I lost a little bit of my identity. I didn't take care of my meat suit anymore. Like, it was all about them. And I probably overcompensated. Like, even when I didn't have money at Dollar Tree, I was buying everything and wrapping it individually. Like, I was going hard for them. Like, let's make the magic, because I felt like we're missing the father figure. And I was mad about that. So, but the spiritual is also with my work. When you work freelance in the motion picture industry, your next gig is maybe around the corner. You had to trust that the paycheck was going to be there. So I'm twirling all the plates of like them in private school, and then my work and like and the rent is due, and then wait for the job. Is the job going to be here? It comes. Like, everything was like a like a really hurry up. Oh my gosh, it's here. It was my nervous system was shot. However, I still believed there was a path. I still believed that when I would surrender, or when I would literally see, I don't check in with religions, but I just believe in this all source, this power, the universe. When I would surrender, my biggest knee drop surrender, when I was at my lowest, really, as a single mom, am I going to be evicted, or are they going to be kicked out of school? And then my dad just died, and there wasn't a penny there, because he was spiraled in his own medical issue. So we didn't even have a memorial. There was no money. So I was low, but I remember being so perfectly clear visually and in my heart of what I did want, that I shifted from what I didn't have, and I'm so mad and I don't have these things, to I'm going to have, and I am, and I will, and I, positive affirmation away. Like, I am doing the right thing. I will be okay. We are good. We have a roof over our head. Like, it might have been an infested rental, but my gosh, it had a pool. Like, and fruit trees. Like, we were like, woo! But, you look around and you're like, but I didn't look around like that. I just looked around like I dreamt of giving my children a house, and I did it. So I celebrated the little things all the time, all the little wins. I also would walk around and I'm like, where's my keys? And I'd feel the stress. Where's my keys? Where are keys? And then I'd just breathe and surrender and be like, wow, something, I guess I'm supposed to be late. I'm like, I could really use my keys right now. And I'd call them, and then I'd find them, and I'd say, thank you. I'd literally thank you so much. Like, I don't know who I'm saying it to, but I just felt like gratitude was a big part to play. And when I got out of the fog of the pain body of being pissed and being like overworked and exhausted and all those things, and I stopped being the victim, I would go, oh my God, they're watching me. They've been watching me this whole time. And then I could either get mad about that, like, damn it didn't have to be like this, or I'd be like, I'd correct it. I just like, okay, they're watching me. So instead of like a fake mom being like, oh, here's a show, it was like, wow, I got really crabby. I'm tired. I just became honest with my kids, and I became hyper aware that they're modeling my behavior. And when I noticed, when on that same aspect, I started noticing my daughter have this blinking thing, like their nervous system was shot. And I'm like, I did that. Maybe the husband too, or husband, I'm now the giant, the ex, maybe, but I couldn't, he's not in the picture. This isn't about him anymore. He has his own pain body. He's an addict and he's dealing with it. It's not my story anymore. So I was like, wow, I'm not going to beat myself up for our story, but I am going to course correct. And so I was teaching them gratitude and the little wins, and that what we have is enough. And look at how the fruits grow without us telling it what to do. It just does it. And follow your bliss and all those beautiful things. So when my dad died, when things were crazy, I felt that wave of shit come up again, and I surrendered. I knee dropped. I hurled, like I screamed almost, like I had a primal moment, and everything went quiet. And I declared, I said, I am ready. I'm ready for my divine masculine partner. I want a partner to do this with. They deserve a divine masculine in their life. And I am ready. Show me the way. I literally said that. I'm crying now. I literally put it out there, and I kid you not. And I feel a part of this. Here's some spiritual woo too. My dad had just passed. I feel like he heard me, because within like a month, I was supposed to go on my first solo trip by myself to like reground. You know, my mom was going to watch my kids, fly into town, I should say, because I had no family in LA, and I was going to take off. But I chose to take a job. I'm like, no, I want one more paycheck to make sure we're okay for the next month. And I took this job, and I was clear. I had already had this declaration, and something in me shifted. And I had a conversation with someone on set, and I talk about all the fun stuff. I like Bigfoot, ET. I talk, and I went, come on, Jan, you know I talk about these things. I'm ready to date. Like, I'm really ready to meet somebody. You've only seen me for 5 years being like manic mom, but no, I'm good. I'm ready. And you know how I talk. Who will not think I'm crazy? You got someone to set me up with? And he's like, well, my cousin. He just lives in another country. And I'm like, I don't care. Send him my name. And so he did. And that was the giant. And I got back to my little crafty table, and Facebook started binging. And this fella with a name I could barely pronounce said, well, this is interesting. I guess I'm supposed to say hello. And then we started this communication, this fella and I, that was so easy. It was just boom, boom. It went from texting to WhatsApp voice texts. And when I heard the frequency of his voice, it was like, it was a history, something was happening. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And I started getting that feeling I didn't feel for the longest time, just like excitement, crush. But here's what it took. He was so stepped into his divine masculine that he made it all happen, because within a month he lived in Wales, North Wales in England. He flew out to us, and I panicked. I'm like, you're coming to me? He goes, no, I'm going to visit my cousin, but I just happened to run into you. I'm like, okay, let's just run into each other. We spent like the whole time together, and we were madly falling. I was like, it was so balanced. And I call him the giant because he does have the giant presence of his stature. However, it was him. It was his calm, stoic, like he was so sure of who he was, sober as can be. Like, he had no children, and he never said he wanted any. He was just work, like A, B, C. He was just somebody stable. And I came from a schedule of uncertainty. Even my children are raised with, we don't know what days my mom's working this week. We don't know if she's going to tuck us in. Like, it was always babysitters, people. He was routine. And it felt so soothing. So he came out like 2 times or whatever. But the spiritual was me feeling this connection of perhaps my dad did that. I called this man into my life. And as much as I started pushing him away, because I was used to my cycle of abuse and like, no, maybe not. You're too far. You can't keep coming to me. He got rid of everything and flew out here with a 6-month visa and wooed me, and we eloped. It's a much beautiful story than that. But what it was it took my accepting the fact that maybe I was alone, but I had a divine feminine role to play with my children now. Like, I already proved a point. I could do it. I could do it all myself. I proved the point. However, it was a disservice, because I have to really, before we run out of time too, I have to talk about being a teacher, because I left the industry and became an educator. So I work with children who have parents that co-parent, parents that don't talk. Like, I want to talk about those things. So I just knew calling in my divine partner would heal our household. And it began to, like, he helped me put things in order so our house naturally cleaned up. The garden literally grew, like grass would grow. Like, it would just, everything became, my nervous system began to settle. And then I would look at them and their nervous system settled. It was a merge though. He didn't take over and I surrendered and stopped doing what I did. He admired how much I worked, how hard I worked. And then he felt driven. He was like, you should not be working like that, and I'm gonna jump in. He jumped in and took Craigslist. You saw him fix things and do things without, like, he just wanted to relieves my stress. But he, without children, how I looked at him behave with the kids is why I fell in love, really. He was so gentle. He's a 6'7" beast. And I remember when he crouched all the way down and was trying to put a worm on a hook for my son. And I'm like, they've never had that experience with their biological dad. They had a man teaching him how to do something. And it's like that beautiful thing of teach a boy to fish, he'll eat forever. So it was so sweet. So here I'm crying. But yeah, it takes a man to be sure of who he is. Well, even if Marchin's not sure who he is, he's aware of that. They're watching, and that he needs to say, I'm feeling this because I'm tired and I'm overworked in this. I apologize. Like, he owns it. He just owns it. So, yeah.
So one of the things that, again, it's in the show that we shot the last 3 episodes, and the spiritual side is basically getting in tune with who you are.
Absolutely.
As a single dad. Who are you? And letting go of the things that hold you back. The other thing that we talked about, and it's so, like I said, the way the universe works is very interesting. One of the things that we talked about in the show last week, I mentioned a book called The Way of the Superior Man. Ooh. And the premise of the book is like the two energies, the masculine and the feminine. And one of the things that it talks about is when you're a man in your masculine energy, the feminine energy kind of like comes into that. Mm-hmm. They're complementary. They work together.
They're meant to work together, not compete.
They're meant to work together. Yeah. Yes. And so it's interesting that, like, for you, the timing of everything coming together for that to happen, it's like, you know, you had mentioned a little bit earlier, like you were like boss mom, boss babe, you know, taking over. You're like, you almost feel like you had that independent like nature. If that nature was trying to coalesce with his nature at that point in time, it wouldn't have worked.
Agreed.
So when you were ready to surrender and you're like, bring me the man that I need, he shows up.
Yes.
And the man that you needed was the one that was that masculine energy, which is, I've mentioned in the show last week, it's focused, it's purposeful.
Yes.
It's calming. Yes. Like you can settle, your energy as a female can settle into that.
Oh yeah.
And allow you to be feminine.
Yes.
So I think it's like I said, this is why I feel it's important to have these conversations. Mm-hmm. On the taking a little side track here on the relational, the other segment that I focus on is on the relational. And for me, the relational is like, what kind of relationship do you have with you? What kind of relationship do you have with your kids? What kind of relationship do you have with your the mother of your children? So in those aspects, on the relational pillar, if you will, what are the things that you focused on? I mean, I kind of hear it in the story that you just shared, where you're just like, I surrendered. This is the man I want. Like, bring him into my life. If he lives in the UK, I don't care. Like, let's be open to that possibility, right? So, I think for me, the question is, as a single mom, what are the relationships of the guys that were coming into your life as a single mom? What was that like versus like what the giant represented for you? Because I think
it's a good one.
One of the things that I notice with, you know, the dating world and all that kind of stuff, I have a lot of female friends that are like, the dating apps suck. It's, you know, blah, 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 garbage, this and this and that. And they tell me the stories of what kind of communication they get from the guys out there. And it's just like, what world are we, when I hear these stories, I'm like, what world are we living in?
Right.
So for me, I think the question is one of the intentions I have for the show is, and we say it in the beginning of the show, building better lives one project at a time, and these are the projects: the spiritual, the relational, the physical. What are the things on the relational side that you experience with guys as a single mom, and that finally took you to like, I don't want this garbage. These are the things that I'm looking for. The giant shows up, and then everything is where it's at now.
Yeah. It's so good. That's juicy, because I first think of right when their biological was out and I was struggle mode. There was a dating chunk before Giant, and before I moved us in our house even. And the first fella, my first fella since the guy, was my alcohol buddy. He was my bar buddy. That was what it was. That's really all it was. And of course, with booze comes promiscuity. And then I was falling for him. And he's like, whoa, 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 this is just supposed to be for fun. And I was like, what? I was used to, like, I was like hurting, but it was a drinking relationship. And then I can't sustain this. Can't sustain this. Then there was a relationship with a guy just showboating. He knew my predicament. He thought he was saving me because I needed saving. And he acted on it, and he overindulged me. And I was rolling my eyes because I'm like, I'm fine with t-shirt or sweatshirt Netflix. You don't have to showboat me or all around town. Look how much money I have. Look what I can do. And it was obnoxious, but anyone could have easily been like, oh, that's someone who's going to save me and take care of us. But it wasn't mad. I was like, no, respect me for what I can do. Let me do what I need to do. Like my first marriage, the acting, he was getting insecure. I just wanted that person to be like, look at you go. And, I got your back. Whereas this guy was like, oh, you poor thing with 2 children. And I was getting offended. And I was like, I don't care how much money you want. I'm not interested. And now these fellas I met on set, like that was the juicy bit. I never did the dating apps. I never did all that. Working in the industry, you got a pool of crew, new ones even every day. So I had a plethora of choices, but I was getting picky in that I had to feel something. So I kept thinking I was guided to these people for a reason. So I'd figure something out, and it was usually a lesson in morals, to be honest. How, am I going, is anyone using each other, and are we truly being authentic? And that was easy to swipe in real life. So it was really those 2 particular fellas. I did find myself falling back on someone I used to have a crush with before I got pregnant. And I went out with them again, and then I realized, what did I see? Because he didn't have much respect for being a mother. He thought I was the same person he met then, but he also didn't want to hear about it. And I'm like, they're all I am. I will talk about my children. And he didn't want to hear it. And I was just like, well, okay. So it was kind of getting easier to pick, because I realized I could do it on my own. I didn't need anybody, but I wanted somebody. And then I got picky, and it wasn't like all types, sizes, ages, nationality, didn't matter. It was, where's the heart connection? So after those 3, I didn't have time. I was like, I don't have time for this, because every waking moment that I wasn't working, I was their primary caregiver, period. I needed to be there for all the moments. So that's why we didn't always have a lot financially. I worked on set to just pay my bills, and then I wanted the other time with them. So we never could do a lot. So to meet somebody that was okay with all these things, being a mother, being a boss, having ambition, having dreams, and wanting a heart connection, it's tricky. And the thing that made it different with Martin, who we call the giant lovingly, was he was so quiet, but I knew he watched there. He was so observant. And he doesn't talk a lot. He never said, this is amazing what you're doing. He'd show it in the weirdest ways. Like, I woke up once and he was washing my food truck with the kids, teaching them how to do it. And I was just like, he's like, go finish your coffee. And I was just like, but he didn't say, stop working, I got you. He was just like, let's make it a little fun. He upgraded the inside of it with the kids, teaching them how to do it. So it was this merge of, I see you, I honor you, and I'm here to help, as well as my analogy I gave even my parents, because my parents, my mom, my dad wasn't around. she was like, it's like a honey badger. I used to be like come close, and I'd be like this. With him, he almost knew I was, so he'd be like, it's okay, all right, it's okay. Like I could, and I saw him doing that with me, and I was so thankful, but also like, I can't believe I'm getting off that energy. So he really gave me this space to heal. And then what was beautiful about 2020 is we eloped before that. So he was stuck with me. He couldn't fly back, but he gave me the space to heal. He was the guy that took them out for donuts and let me sleep in. I never happened. You know, I was starting to regenerate, and then I started feeling prettier again. I started dressing for him, or being calm and rested enough that I could hold a conversation and look at him and listen better. Because I think he knew, he could see all these things in me. He just knew I was in keeping my children well and twirling all the plates by myself. So he graced me with that. He wasn't scared of it. And some of the guys are scared of that. They're scared of a mom who can do it all. And they don't really need a partner. They want one. They just have conditioned themselves to not need them. So any man that will have an insecurity, or a man that's like thinks they're not going to be good enough, or they're going to be judged for how they hang out with their kids, whatever it is, I think a woman just wants to see a man confident and let them go through this metamorphosis of single mom survival mode, is what it is, a survival mode, to letting them in. Because it's going to balance out. Can you get through that crazy wave of, holy shit, this woman's in survival mode. How do I fit in? Do we just 1 hour dates a week and she gets wasted, and, you know, or can I embrace her lifestyle and get in there a little bit and not be scared of it? And I think that was a combo. Winning combo.
So can I ask this question? This is just popping up in my head right now. What are the things that you and the giant did to get through that phase? Because one of the things I talked about in last week's show was for guys that are in their masculine energy, and for women that are in their feminine energy, the feminine energy, and described in the book, The Way of the Superior Man, the feminine energy is dynamic. It's always in motion. It's always moving. And the masculine energy is stoic. It's just still like a rock. So one of the things that I mentioned last week was like, let her be in her energy. That's her energy. Yes. She's supposed to be a tornado, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
And you don't step into that tornado. You don't get rocked by it. So what are the things that you and the giant did to get through that phase that you were going through to where now you're in your feminine energy?
I think the first thing I think of is we didn't try to teach each other a lesson. We just mirrored each other. And we didn't, what I appreciate the most with him is he didn't run away. Like, he would mirror me without fear of my attacks, because I would. So I'd be like, don't call out that, even though it's true. But I respected him enough for being there with me that I would pause and reflect. And I'm like, fuck, he's right. You know? And so I've been going through these layers like an onion of just me and him pointing things out at me that I don't like about myself, but no one's ever pointed it out to me, and I didn't get scared and run away. And then I could vice versa with him. And that has to do with little things, even just how he takes care of his body and stuff. He makes little changes because, not just because I like it, but because I gave him a teachable moment. Like, the cigarette smoke, like, he stopped smoking. That was my first thing. I'm not even dating you. Don't even bother taking another flight unless you stop smoking. So he came back and he was done smoking. That's one of those things. But I think the biggest thing is we didn't run away from each other, even when we showed each other that we're being ugly. Like, he would show me, you're being really mean right now. And it's not even not cute. He goes, I don't think you know what you're saying. I think you're just tired and you're overwhelmed and you gotta go rest. Like, he would just hit me with something, and either I'd be in that flailing moment of like, you son of a, you know what? All those fights really have not happened for a while now, a couple of years, but in the very beginning, sure. And he would just be there. He wouldn't leave. He wouldn't run away. He'd just be like, are you done? That's what he would literally tell me all the time. You feel better? And I was just like, yes. He's like, go to bed. And that simple. And then I'd wake up rested and well. He did not give up on me. And I had the hardest time letting him in. But once I surrendered to letting him in, I began to heal. And then the balance was just like there. It got there. But I think what we both did, and even some co-parenting, why it is successful and why it is not, if you do not put the child first, their needs first, not just food on the table, but I'm talking nervous system. If you can have fights, you can disagree, but if that child does not feel like, if they feel they're they're the problem, then there's a problem. So there, Bo, my dog has a few things to say.
The dog keeps going.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting when you mentioned that, because I think a couple of things come to mind is, I remember I wasn't really dating this girl, but we were, not even fooling around. I just, in the first stages of like, do I want to be with this person? But the thing that stands out for me is she asked me, she goes, so you have a daughter, right? And if we start dating, does your daughter come first? Like, does she come before me? And I'm like, yeah. So there's that. There's people that are out there that just don't get it because they don't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think to the Giants' credit that he saw you in the life that you were living and was like, I'm here.
Yes.
Like let's do
Yes.
this. Like I said, with that little experience I had with that girl, I'm like, you do not understand.
You do not
You're not
understand.
even close to understand at all.
Right. Yes. Yes.
The other quick thing that comes up is, I love the stories that you have with him using, maybe he wasn't using them consciously, moments like teaching moments, but being there with your kids as a father figure, even though he wasn't like their dad.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, for me, like my ex has another man. They both have a daughter together, and this man is my daughter's stepdad. For the longest time, I had to come to terms with that. But I appreciate him for putting food on the table, roof over my daughter's life as far as a home and all that kind of stuff. So anytime I think I hear stories of guys that are either single dads or stepdads coming in, this is an honor to PJ over here, who's stepdad also. I think those are the kinds of people that we need more of in our lives. Is like, step up and do your part. Like I get that, like even for me, and one of the things that I was going to mention while you were talking right now is, for a lot of single guys, I feel this is that we lose our confidence.
Yeah.
Like, we did something, we had a relationship, it fell apart for whatever reason, whoever you want to blame for it falling apart. But our core is, this is my experience, and there's a couple of a few of the other guys that I know that are single dads have gone through this. It's like, at our core, it's like we're shaken. We don't feel like a man anymore. Like we did something wrong, like something's not right. And so that confidence goes out the window, and we got to find a way to get it back. So there's a lot of this stuff that I think, if people listen to the conversation and listen to what you're sharing, there's a lot of insights in the stories that you're sharing with us. On the intellectual side, so the intellectual project in the show is like taking the mind stuff and like, what can I feed my mind that's positive? And you had mentioned earlier that you went into like the positive affirmation stuff and whatnot. But were there any books, courses, mentors that you used to, when you were in single mom mode, to help pull you out of like the craziness?
Oh, from single mom mode?
And did you use any of? Yeah, did you use any of that with your kids? Like, one of the shows I mentioned was, I can't remember if it was part of the intellectual project, but one of the books that I mentioned was like The 5 Love Languages, which is a book I kind of skimmed through. And then there was a book for children, The 5 Love Languages of Children. And once I knew the 5 love languages, I'm like, I already know what my daughter's like. I kind of skimmed through that book too, but I'm like, knowing the 5 love languages, I already knew what my daughter's love language was. So I'm like, okay, knowing that, I can approach her in a way where I know what, at least the way the book describes it, what love means to her. And so for my daughter, it was gifts. Every time I, come pick her up for my weekends, I always had a little something for her. We would go, when she was younger, she loved collecting rocks for whatever reason. So we'd go out and find rocks and put them in a little box. And I got, even to this day, I still have like little boxes of rocks that we went out and collected.
That's awesome.
Because that was her thing. So on the intellectual side, what were, if you could share, what were those things, like I said, books, mentors, courses, anything like that helped?
Well, totally. Before I say that, I want to honor you with something that I didn't quite talk about before, and I don't need to go to my side of details, but as a woman honoring you, thank you for this planet, for showing up. You did. That's really all you have to do in your position, is just to show up consistently. And that is everything to a child. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because that is the hardest step, is to just be there for the kid. And whether anyone's watching or not, those were my favorite moments with Martin, was when he didn't know I was watching and I saw him being that. He wasn't showboating, showing off for me, like, oh, hello, child. He did it on his own accord. And you as well, you disciplined yourself to be there at the right time, all the time. So she had faith in you and trusted you. And that's everything. I thought a good book for your views, if you're Way of the Peaceful Warrior, I thought that would be good, because Dan Millman, I love Dan Millman, and he has another one, The Life You're Supposed to Live. Crafty gave me that book when I first moved here, and I have that tattoo here of my number. Do you have it right there? Oh,
no, I don't have it with me. I'm writing the Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Yeah, that's by Dan Millman.
I kind of read that one. The second one,
the second one is the same author, but it's just The Life You're Born to Live. It's more of a numerology thing. But why I picked that book is for single dad wise, is when my children were born, I had their number then, because it's taking your birth numbers and numerology, tarot, whatever you think of, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of magical. It's a little blueprint. And it's really dealing with temperaments, because we all have this human nature, but we all do have our own blueprint. And temperament is a big to-do. So I could see patterns. And I just went through the book with my kids recently because, it froze. Because we went through, they didn't know about it. And I go, I've had this book for 25 years. And they can see all my scribbles with my number. It's almost like a course corrector. But with children, it was really cool to see, because I saw patterns in my son young that I'm seeing now. And as a parent, it helps with the discipline. Same thing can be said for human design. If you find out the temperament of your child, you can't come at your kid, a choleric child, who likes the energy, they're fire, they love that. You can't match that, or you guys are never going to come to solution. You have to be the water to their fire. You've got to calm it and sedate it. Like, you got to find that balance, because no children are the same. So I approach my daughter with discipline different than I approach my son. And same with their education and their lifestyle. Like, they're very different. But I then parent just a little bit different. I'm still whole, but I know my words when they go over my daughter's head, how I have to re-deliver them. And I know if my guy, if everything ends with a, or like, he's my jokester, then he soaks it in. So that kind of book, it kind of helps you go, oh yeah, that's totally my kid. And then you as the parent can go, wow, no wonder he doesn't hear me when I yell 3 times. It's not that I'm, yelling. Well, it could be the yell, or it could be the repeating it. It's learning as you go and being patient. Then also being an educator, it's working with children with these different temperaments. Same thing, a good educator will come at them a little bit different. What's another really amazing book? I didn't have time to read. Survival mode. I wasn't reading anything. Podcast wise, it was a lot of more how to take ownership of who you are and what you do. If you own your shit, and that's kind of half the battle, to stop being the victim or blaming the other person. That's really hard with co-parents, like putting the blame on another. But I I have so much more empathy, even compassion, even love for my children's birth father. Because thank God for him, I would never have them. Like, what the best gift I have ever had in my life. And it was, him choosing to not be in their life, because that's what he's doing. Even to this day, he chooses to not be there. The wound has healed, not just because my giant stepped in, but because I stopped fighting. I stopped making him be somebody he didn't want to either not want to be, or like you said, maybe insecure or something happened to him from his last relationship. It's not my lifetime to be spent figuring that out and helping him. I've got to be complete myself and hope that he can do it too. So, I wish I had more books and courses for you. I mean, I could throw out Course in Miracles. I can throw out all those fun ones, but I really wasn't diving into that survival mode. I was really listening to the inner voice though. I was really listening to saying one thing. I'm like, why am I saying this when or accepting invitations to go, or when you really don't want to go? If you're not honoring what your real gut instinct wants to do, then something's going to fester. And that goes with parenting. If you aren't honoring what your child is truly saying or doing, or, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time. I hope I'm not going in circles.
I think one of the things that I mentioned in the second episode, in the episode where we talked about who are you as a father, as a single dad, in the intellectual exercise, it was we played a little MP3 file of interview that Deepak Chopra had, and in the interview he's basically saying to the audience.
So actually we could try something right now with you. So you could glimpse it even this moment. As you're listening to me, just turn your attention to who's listening. So as you're listening to me, just turn your attention to who's listening. There's a presence there. It's not your mind. Your mind is still noisy. But just turn your attention to who's listening. And that silent witness, that ever-present witnessing awareness, is the soul.
What he's basically saying is there's a higher self, there's an observer back there behind the eyes, the soul, whatever you want to call it, but it's not this ego. It's not this thing that you think you are. And on the intellectual side, I think even if you don't have books or mentors or whatever, like you mentioned, it could be that it's your intuition saying like, calm down, or, surrender, or stop playing victim. It's the little voice inside of you that has all the wisdom.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Recognizing patterns, recognize patterns of things and change them. Everything's a choice.
On the physical side, what are the things that you experienced as a single mom? I think, you've talked about it here a little bit. I keep hearing it because I'm listening intently to what you're sharing. But what are the things on the physical side that you experienced, like the craziness, the stress and all that stuff, and on not so much like, because you had mentioned you had the one guy that was like your drinking guy, but what were the things that you did as a single mom to improve your health, improve like dealing with the stress, little things like that? What are the activities that you did?
I think, especially for living in LA, one of the best things I did, whether I went by myself or I took the kids, was just get in nature or get to the ground, get to earth. I was in an apartment, and you're not grounded. And you also are around all these other energies in an apartment. And even though we had a great view and trees and stuff, you're still connected to all these other people. So really just taking us and stepping away. Even if it's 20 minutes up into the San Gabriels or run to the beach, it doesn't have to cost anything. So maybe gas, or go for a walk, but get to grass, get to nature, and just slow down. Just sit, put your ass on the grass and they'll play, but you can just start slowing down. That was really probably the first thing I think about, especially the apartment days. And then even in the house, both of the house, we had our backyard and the fruit trees. I made that space was our tranquil, like that was our healing sanctuary. And I believe I found that place for a reason. But when we had the apartment, we had to physically make the choice to leave. Now, when you're battling depression, or when you're in that lull, or you overdrank or whatever, you don't want to leave. You don't want to get dressed. You don't want to brush your teeth. You don't want to do anything. I remember one week I ordered pizza like 3 nights in a row. And the guy saw me. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And he goes, don't worry. I understand. I hear your kids. Not that they're bad. There's just weird little apartment. And we went crazy. So I didn't leave. And we got a little, I literally had to just be like, let's go. You have to make one foot in front of the other and just go. Get out of the space that's smothering you and breathe. Dancing. Thank goodness the little kids, they love to dance. But if I just crank that music and if I'm depressed sitting there, you can't help but move around. You gotta move the energy. Something is stagnant. And I will put on record, God bless Shannon Fry. She's a acupuncturist here in Hollywood, but she also does the woo. And she was a mom friend that just did the old come to my office free of charge. And I remember, I'll never forget it because I didn't even get massages. I used to do all that all the time, but I had this spell of doing nothing. I got body work done, and she moved energy on my body, but also in my little field around me. And she did the woo stuff. And I remember her just muttering when she was doing it. I had in my multidimensional self and higher self and everything, like roll vines, drowning me. She could see dark entity attachments. Like there's a lot going on when you are spiraling or when you're living in that stress frequency. You become susceptible and a target to dark energies and entities. I don't know how woo you want to go, but I can go there. And when she started
You know me, girl. You know I can go woo.
I fucking love it. Saved my life. I will put my words on that one because the fog started to lift and I had some clarity. She even said, your eyes are brighter. You're getting brighter. I did a couple little things with her where she moved enough energy that me crawling to her, I could start to walk better. Like, so if you can't get to a practitioner like that who will gift you something of that nature's the best medicine, I really think. And you can get that in the city. You can find that. You can find it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were talking, one of the things, this is, I don't know how many years ago, this is probably 2015, I think. I went out to San Diego. We did a road trip and we stopped at, we were coming back home and I think there's 4 of us in the car and we took a vote. We were kind of like by the Grand Canyon, but we could go past the Grand Canyon and go somewhere else. My vote was Grand Canyon because I'd never been there. Mm-hmm. The other 3 in the car had already seen it. So I was like, shit, I'm outvoted here. But we ended up stopping at this place called the National Forest, Petrified Forest, something
I've
like
been
that.
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So seeing all those tree stumps that are stone is like trippy. But one of the things that we went, on the road and we're up on this cliff and we get out of the car and everybody just kind of went their own way. There's other people there, but not a lot. And I remember just sitting up on this little cliff because I could see down into the valley and I'm looking across the valley and I'm like, I can't see the highway from here. I'm like, where's the highway? And I'm looking around. I'm looking up at the sky. There's no chemtrails up there. I couldn't see any airplanes. And in that moment of being in that space, physically away from everybody and everything, like this overwhelming sense of peace came over me. And I was just like, wow, I've never felt that before. Now, here's the thing. This is the trippy part. A few weeks later, same year, I was meeting a friend out in the city. She wanted to meet at Oak Street Beach in Chicago. And so I was like, all right, cool. My phone's about to die though. So I'm like, I'll meet you at the beach, but wear something where I could find you basically. Cause it's summertime, I'm sure the beach was going to be packed. Go to the beach. Can't find my friend. And I'm just kind of waiting by the shore of the beach thinking, well, maybe she'll see me. I'm just going to hang out here. And I put my feet in the water. I'm not super far in the water, just enough to get my feet wet. And you used to live in the city. You used to live in Chicago. So, like Oak Street Beach is right there by Lakeshore Drive. Mm-hmm. You got this, John Hancock is right there. Mm-hmm. There's all the buildings. There's a lake. Sirens are going off, motorcycles are going down Lakeshore Drive, running their engines. It's just like all this chaos, right? Again, though, in that moment, I don't know why, but I felt this overwhelming sense of peace. And I think it's because it wasn't the city necessarily, because the city's not really that peaceful if you think about it, but that experience of having the peace at the petrified forest,
You carried it.
bringing that energy with
Yes.
me to Chicago.
So happy you said that.
And then I'm there, and it's just like I don't need to be anywhere specific. Like, and this is where, like, when those books talk about, hey, it's the peace and the, you know, the kingdom of God comes within you. Like, that's the legit
Absolutely.
statement right there.
1000%.
I can be, and now mind you, I've had my crazy moments of stress, and you know, sometimes when I'm sitting in traffic and I'm just like, rah.
Sure. You're human.
You get that, but right. But there's, if I sit with it, my physical space, I can find peace anywhere.
Yes.
Because it's not the space, it's who I am, it's what I bring to that table.
Yes.
And so the physical for me is always like a two-part. It's like, what's your body doing and what's the space around you doing? The last two, we're coming up on our last two.
Oh,
How
yeah.
we doing on time, PJ? PJ's
Can I
good.
do a super quick thing on that, what you just said?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
because before I even had kids, running to nature was it's a recharge. And then you bring that divine energy in. But in order to do all those things, I think today's day and age, and everyone needs to be aware of, is you got to get the break from the tech. You got to step away from the Wi-Fi, power down your shit, power down everything. That's why the nature thing, get the phone off. You don't take videos and then just be in nature. I think that is huge reward. Go ahead.
100% agree with you. That's it. And it almost feels like, especially for those of us that live in the big cities, it's harder and harder to get away from like the big tech,
It
because
is.
there's cameras everywhere. There's, you know, you got the smart homes and all
I
this shit,
know.
even the smart buildings, and everything's around you. So I think it's a little bit more difficult for us in the big cities, but like you said, just take a 20-minute
possible.
drive to the
Yeah,
mountains,
it's a
to the
choice.
beach.
Yes.
It's like out here, it's like, you know, take a little half-hour drive west. You're in the country, basically. You're in
You
farmland.
can also power down, turn your Wi-Fi off at night, grounding sheet, unplug down. You know, you got to make these choices and detox the metals. You know, my whole spiel is the holistic bit, but that changed my whole life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
On these last two, we're into the money side. One's the financial project. I talk about this in the show as far as like getting your money right as far as being a single dad. And I think,
Smart.
like I mentioned earlier, I think with the confidence hit, it's hard to go after that when you don't feel confident anymore. And I think this conversation is tricky when we talk about single moms, single dads, because the child support topic comes
yes.
into play.
Good one.
So
Yes.
yeah, so I wanna ask you about that.
Yeah.
I'd like to preface it with my experience. My ex and I talked about child support. We never went through the lawyers or anything like that when we went through our divorce. Didn't want to. At the time before our divorce even was a thing, I wasn't working. I got out of my job and I was trying to do my own thing, like, you know, doing a little video business on the side, and it just was not working out. So by the time the divorce happened, she knew, like, I'm not good for shit. I don't have 2 pennies to my name. But the child support issue topic did come up because she was like, we got to find a way for this to happen. You need to be able to help somehow. And even though we didn't go through the lawyers, we didn't go through all the legal battles for her to get money out of me, over the years, one of the things that we've settled on as a co-parenting couple, if you will, is outside of the marriage, like after the divorce, one of the things that we settled on was, and this is kind of maybe a negotiating thing. She said she was going to get full custody of our daughter. And after I got back up on my feet, I could apply to get shared custody. So that meant I had to go through the legal system, get lawyers and all that shit, which I didn't even want to mess with. But the thing for us was, and I mentioned this earlier, her thing was like, just be there for our daughter. And if you fuck that up, that's on you.
Yeah.
So over these last 16 years that my daughter's been with us, after the divorce, she's 18 now. Overall this time, I made it a very concerted effort to be there for my kid, even though there were a lot of years where I couldn't pay financially for any kind of child support, anything. So our arrangement, even
you were there. That's priceless.
yeah. So our arrangement for the last few years since she's been in high school now is I go and pick her up from school, or I take her to practice, or I show up to the competitions. Her mom shows up to the competitions, but like I'm at every competition. I've probably missed in the last 4 years, I've probably missed 4 or 5 competitions.
So beautiful.
So her mom has paid for everything. Her mom's always had the better jobs. I've struggled financially, but part of the reason is I've put myself in those situations because I want to be there for my kid. And I'm sure there's, a lot of way smarter than me, single fathers or fathers in general, or just men in general that are like, you could have invested and blah, 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 dividend, this and this and that. And it's just like, yeah, but, part of the thing for me too that I want to share is it goes back to that confidence level thing. I didn't have the confidence when I was going through the divorce to do any kind of, smart investing, anything. Emotionally, I was like, I'm not a good dad. I'm not in a good place. So how would I even consider being a smart financial person in that mental space, right? So I just wanted to share my experience because I have a lot of friends that are single dads that are like paying the child support and they're struggling to keep up with the child support.
It's a horrible system.
So
I'll just say that.
I sympathize with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's one fellow out there that I'd like to get on the show. He hasn't seen and I just recently saw a post that he hasn't seen his daughter in 7, 8 years, something like that, because the system has kept him away from his kids.
Oh.
I think that's terrible. So in your experience, I know we kind of like, we're talking about this maybe before we started recording the show, but like you're going through this child support thing. You had mentioned the financial thing. If you're not comfortable talking about it, we don't have to go there, but what are your experiences as a single mom, like the struggles, the stress of, hey, you were supposed to be paying child support, but you're not.
Yeah.
So like, how did you overcome that?
I definitely want to say too, my daughter was born 2010 and my son was 2013. And I didn't file for child support till 2018. I didn't even bother. I was like, you know what? It's just what it is. He doesn't show up. I mean, I paid my own hospital bill. Like everything since they were conceived was on me. But it was the new community I was in. And there were some moms that were like, you are running yourself into the ground. You deserve the help. He's on the birth certificate. You deserve the help. And I was just like, I didn't want to do it because I didn't want that system involved. I didn't want all the legalities, and I still had the empathy, and I knew that there is struggle. I also knew what he did on set, and then he made a good living. He would just drink it away. So I just didn't want any attachments. However, I surrendered. I applied. And I filled out whatever I needed to fill out, and they allocated how much I was owed in child support. The problem with that was, and what it was it was going to cover just a little bit under their monthly school rate. That was it. Or, maybe the food. I mean, it wasn't, I had everything else, but it was a little bit. Cut to, as of today, he owes me over $50,000. So he would just little bit, whatever it was, a lot of avoiding it. And when he would be upset about it, I'm like, I can't believe we're in this. I'm sorry, however, you do know it's cheaper just to visit them, like just to stay in touch. I go, you have a cell phone, you on it when you're taking a shit, text them. Like I was kind of like almost threatening, this can go away. And I can't believe I'm saying that out loud, but it almost was like my friends in my ears were like, get something from, like, you know, this isn't cool. He was in and out of your life for so long. Get something for it. So I thought I was doing the right thing. And to this day, was I? I don't know. Because what would come in would be like a trip to the grocery store. Like it wasn't substantial. I mean, medical bills, everything was on me. So I felt like I was then part of the problem. Like I kind of told myself, you're just prolonging this inevitable, like just let him go. He doesn't want to be a part of this. Let him go. And then I realized, oh shit, we're in the system. Like you can't just let it go. Like, oh, what have I done? So there was empathy. And so that way too, like I didn't believe in smartphones for kids, but I'll say this too quick. When March and I were together, we took him to coffee and we're like, listen, we think we're going to be together. We really want to figure out a co-parenting. And he's like, this is great. Sure. And then we never heard from him again. So we did try to like make this work. Even when March came around, he'd be there and then he'd be gone and then he'd be there and be gone. So anyway, then I was like, oh no, now I really, like, I felt like, oh God, I just screwed it up on him. Now I'm always connected. Like, I don't know what to do here. But at the same time, every time I'd be like, oh my gosh, we're in trouble, I'd get a little bump. And I'm like, okay, that helps. So it was helping. But it was never about the money. It was just not about the money. And I do think the system is abusive. I think it's done incorrectly. I think it's a sham. And I think it's fucked. And I know in the state of California, you are screwed in the system. We were never married, so it is a little easy cut. It's a little easier than some people. However, had I taken that to court, we never went to court. We never had to do all that. It was just a child service department thing. If I wanted to take it to court, and I said, if you need to take this to court and you need to figure this out, let's do it. A friend said, if he shows up, you're going to have to start paying him because you're making the money. And it was just, but I did offer court dates. I'm like, if you want to have somebody else figure this out for us, we can do that. But then he didn't show up to the court date. So, and that's what happened the past 3 years. Okay, so cut back to March and I married. We got through a lot of stuff. He was tired of him coming in our life. The smartphone thing. I let my daughter have Marchin's old phone so I could be like, you have free direct access to her, even at 10, 11 years old. Please, you can. She looks like you, like, have you go. He could not do it. He could not. And that made my now husband so upset, where he was like, fuck this. So he began to apply. It took us almost 2 years, but it was 2 years. He officially legally adopted them last year. So he did that to be like, we basically said, we don't care about the 50,000. I wound up writing him an email saying, I'd like to end this, whatever this is. Marchin would like to be their legal father. They would no longer have your name, and the debt that has been accruing every month, it will stop. I never said, because I don't know. I go, the debt will always be there, but it will stop. Payments will stop. He was like, where do I sign? That's the only time he ever responded to me. And so I met him in a notary. It's the first time I saw him. He rolled up, and I was a Jeep girl, right? He rolled up in one of those big, crazy new Jeeps. And I didn't have a car. I had Marchin's old car. I was puttered in, like, he's like, what are you driving now? Because I used to be into the cars. I'm like, whatever I can. And I go, you're doing well. He goes, it's not mine, it's my partner's. And I'm like, business partner? Like, no. And I didn't pry. We signed a notary, and he was being very cordial and everything. But I was just like trying to just get me through this moment. The adoption happened. The name changed. Everything happened. And just this last Christmas, it had been 1.5 years, I got a text from him saying, didn't Marchin adopt the kids? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, why are they still taking money out of my account? And I'm like, it's a debt. And I go, and I don't have the answers for you. You're going to have to contact that office at some point. You didn't show up to the meeting. You didn't show up to the court. You got to figure out in this year end, kind of like you buried yourself. And I'm sorry, but wouldn't it have been different if you just showed up in their life a little bit? Like, emoji.
Yeah.
An emoji a week could have saved you $50,000. I mean, I hate to be that gal, but honestly, I was so mad at how my children were treated that my retaliation, I will say this to your male audience, I applied for child support and I regretted it. I was like, I didn't mean to make that energetic exchange like that, but I did it because I was angry. And I did it 8 years after my kid was born. So I feel like, you know, he could walk away. He does take cash under the table. He does, but someone said, no, it's in there. Even if he passes away, it's a debt. It's a state debt. And so I have this weird feeling about it. But we cleared our house. New birth certificates came. We have my name and now my husband's name hyphenated. That's all my kids have been saying for years. My daughter's proud of it. She signs her name. She calls him dad. They had their first teen moment, you know, and he's a rager. He can rage. He is a giant. So she talked back for the first time. And I was just like, ooh. And with me, it's one way, but I watched him like, and he wouldn't go after. And she stormed up. He'll go after. He goes, I can't. If I do, I can't. I'm going to yell. I can't. And I noticed he was self-regulating. He stayed till he composed himself. And I'm crying. I'm like, please go after. I'm like, you signed up for this. You're the dad now, so go after. But I shouldn't have. I don't need to intervene. He calmed and self-soothed. And 20 minutes later, I was like, I could hear him in the room talking to her. And they did it. And I'm like, this is priceless. This is amazing. So that financial thing, I just want to tell all your audience, the system is wrong. It's abusive. It could be done so many other ways. The more cordial you are with each other and just putting the children's needs first, I think the easier it'd be on everybody. And honestly, I've known for years the fact that you showed up for that girl. I can't believe she's 18 now. I was at his wedding. That's priceless. No, your daughter is never going to be like, well, my dad didn't pay the money. My dad fucking showed up for me. That's how she's being raised. The most important man in my life was there for me. That's all the children want. That's it.
I hope that's what she
Aww.
says. But yes, like I said, there's a guy out there I know that went through the system, and you know, I think his ex went after him for child support and he couldn't pay it. And, you know, she was going after other monies, or the system was going after other monies. And I don't know if saying this on the channel gets me in trouble, but I don't like the idea of involving lawyers.
Right. I'm with you.
I think in certain circumstances, I think it's a benefit to have somebody that's in the legal profession that knows what they're doing and can, you know, give you the landscape. But I find it very difficult to trust people that know the language and you don't know the language and you don't know the game. So you're relying on their expertise and they may just be in it to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
I don't like that system at all.
At all. Right there with you.
On the last one of our projects here for the Single Dad Project is the business project. And when I first was going through the idea of how I wanted to do the show, I've been around people that are entrepreneurs. And I've dabbled in it here and there, like when I ran my little film festival years ago, which I'm wearing the t-shirt for it now. I've dabbled on the business side. I've been more of a W-2 employee most of my life. I do see the benefits, and obviously the benefit is like making way more money than you're making off of a paycheck, but I do see the benefits of having a business.
Yes.
And so when I was going through the concept of how I wanted to do the show, and I started going online, finding like, how can I, like, I'm not the business person. I don't have a business. I don't run a business. How do I convey this idea of having a business for single dads? And the thing that I started looking at was excuse me, I got a little head cold. The thing that I started looking at was how does the Bible talk about business? And the answers that I got back from the AI and search and everything was that the Bible doesn't talk about business the way we talk about business in the modern sense. It was all shepherds and farmers and, that kind of thing, people that did trade. And so the thing that did keep coming up in the conversation when I was doing this research on business and the Bible and all that kind of stuff was this concept of stewardship.
Yes. Sorry, I'm
and yeah, and so in the stewardship, so in the modern times, a business is like, capitalism, supply and demand, invest, make money, this and this and that. But the way the Bible describes it, it was more of a purpose-driven activity. Like you're a steward of the land that God gave you. So your job as a steward is to cultivate the land. And that's another word that kept coming up is cultivate and what that means. And so for me, like being 50 years old and working damn near half of my life, more than half of my life, the idea of work is just like, I don't want to do it anymore.
I hear you.
But this idea of cultivation and how it was explained in the Bible, I was just like, that's way different than work. That's way different than clocking in, doing your 8 hours and expecting a paycheck in 2 weeks. Cultivation is like getting in there and getting your hands dirty and tilling the ground because you're building something. And to me, that's what business is about too, is you're building something, and it's not just something for you in the here and now. It's something that can be there for your kid, for your kids'
legacy.
kids, for generations down the line. So you went from being an actress to getting into the business side. Can you kind of just go over that? I know that was before you were a mom, right?
Yeah, but it's a
When
quick
you were
thing there because I'll do current days as an educator. I really love this topic.
Yeah. Please do.
Well, yeah, when I started my business, Meow Meows Inc., I sucked. I suck at business. I pour every penny I made, I put right back in. I did not know how to make the money work for me. But what I have done, and I've done since I was little, because my parents would say, do what you love, the money will come. So I always followed my bliss. I never took a paycheck from something that I was like, oh, I loved my work because I love every job I picked. It was part of my spirit. Whether it was teaching or babysitting or being on set, I was always doing what I love. So formulating a business was natural. I just never took a course. I do think you need to learn the fundamentals. I just learned if it comes in and then you spend it. I didn't do very good with that. Why I'm sharing that is I walked away from that business with nothing to show for it, except a really hell of a good time, and I did it. However, I'm an educator today, and I do have kids that got our hustle, about the hustle, and I work with littles and even my 8 to 11-year-olds, and it is about tilling the ground. And the thing is what we've lost the art of, and if we can get back to, and this comes with parents or educators, whatever the special skill the child comes in with. There are innate skills children come into this planet with, and they're all different. And the purpose of learning the fundamental skills as a child, which was lost in the school system, gardening, building, shop, these things that, what kind of human are you? And what gifts do you have? Are you the thinker? Are you the doer? Are you the generator? We figure that as a child, there's their business model. And so I'm working with 8-year-olds developing businesses and stuff because I love this thing of empowerment. Being empowered, if you are clocking in and working for the man, and that's what the old school system is, get the children ready to work for somebody else. Get them ready for the factory or the assembly line or to work for the globalist agenda. No, get these creator beings. If you were born on this planet, you are a creator being. And in every religion has a creation story. So when humans started learning that there's land to tend, that they can grow, that their hands can build ships to travel to new things, I mean, we do this. Anything can be turned into a business. Absolutely anything. Podcasting, baking, building, walkie, like anything. It's what you dream it. And if you are truly in your passion and in your bliss, there will be someone seeking your knowledge. And there's the business model. Like my daughter is 14 and she's been raised with those philosophies in education. And at 14, next month, she's publishing a book, and the movie that she wrote and directed, a short film, is premiering in a theater. Like from industry people. I'm like, but what children get that opportunity? So what I see is, sure, 14, I see an almost adult who's going to know who they are. They're confident. They have critical thinking, and they know their bliss is enough, that their passion is enough, and that there's a place in the world for it. And that was lost in our generation, I think. I mean, we came from these families where the family broke and families had to work. My mom did stay. We were just fortunate to have that. But look at what happened. I was raised with money, and at the very end, at my dad's funeral, we couldn't even have it. There was no money. Bank took it all. Like, what was that? What was that? My mom was home with us, but him building this money, it never passed down. So, but he instilled in me family unit, and now I'm instilling in my kids, follow your bliss. And your passion will be your business model. And for the dads out there, punch in the clock just to make the money to cover the bills, that's sending a message to your kids. And if you think like the giant, he's lining himself up because he's not happy in the industry. He's in the film industry now. He's not happy. He's doing it to keep us ahead because the teacher doesn't make enough, but he knows I'm doing good work. And he's not stopping it. He's like, no, you're supposed to be doing this. So, but I just recently talked to him. He hustles too. And there's two routes he could go depending upon the couple choices he has to make. But they have to do with what he never had a woman say, what do you want to do? What do you want? What could you do all day? And if I came in like to the garage and you're like, go, I'm busy. You're like, what do you want to do? And he would say, I tinker cars, or he's got a couple things. I'm like, do it. He's like, easier said than done. I go, I get that, but put it out there. At least declare it. And then don't be surprised when you meet somebody who just happens to have a truck for sale. Or, I do believe in manifestation. And I do believe the power of our words and our thoughts. Thoughts become things all the time. I'm testament. So watching my own husband now go through it, and whether that means staying in California or not, whatever it is, I go, you are not doing what you love because you're not waking up like, yay, I get to do this today. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody should do that. I teach children to do that. I think that's very important. And we're missing that. And now we're in the digital age. So we escape. It's checking out and it's numbing out. And I'm like, that's not how we're human. We're not supposed to, humans are meant to create constantly and with purpose. The purpose is to do big things, like move the energy, but also so others can find you. And others can be like, I really like what you do. I need that. I'll buy that from you. Or you have knowledge in this. With the education, what I'm working in a new education system that has mentors now, not even teachers. I'm an educator, but I'm really a mentor to help them find what they can do as either a business model or for work. So I think businesses are a big deal, and I really think anything can be turned into them. I think an LLC is incredibly empowering, but it's really, though, it's a declaration of I'm enough, and what I can do is important, and I think that's important. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'd like to see. My daughter's already almost out of the school system. But I'd like to see some of the old school ways come back in somehow. Like, I think, and I'll probably mention this somewhere down the line in, full on talk about it, but it wasn't until 2010 that I was given the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Oh, and I do want to talk about that book eventually, like I said, full on, but when I read that book probably in one night, one sitting, and I was like, why weren't we taught this shit in high school?
Isn't that amazing?
Like, this is the important stuff. What he talks about in the book is something that I think I'm grateful that and the funny thing is the person that gave me the book to read was a real estate investor that I was working with, shooting video with. And he's like, you need to read this book. So I would like to see like some of that old school stuff come back in. I don't think the current system that we have will support it. In fact, I know it won't, because I know teachers that are not happy with the way the system is operating currently. They struggle with like the bureaucracy and all that kind of stuff. But one of the teachers I talked to, I said, look, we live in an age where you don't have to rely on the system to do what you want to do inside of that system. You can do it outside of the system, still punch in, clock in your hours, and have a little side business where you talk about the things that you think are beneficial for raising kids. Everybody's doing it. I mean, not everybody. There's a lot of examples nowadays with the internet. And, I mean, I say nowadays, but shit, the internet's going on damn near 30 some odd years now.
That's crazy.
So to me, I think one of the reasons why it's one of the pillars projects in the Single Dad Project conversation is because I see it as a way out for dads that are struggling to make ends meet, pay the bills. It's going to take work. It's going to take a little effort here and there, probably a little bit of capital to get things going. But almost every example you hear of the people that are making money or have made money or are up there in the money game, they will always tell you don't get wealthy working a 9-to-5 job. You just don't.
Yes.
And
yes, true.
So I think that's an important part of the conversation. So we're towards the end of our little discussion here, Heidi. I want to thank you so much for taking all this time, for sharing your insights and your stories, your struggles, your wins, your ups and downs. I think I had mentioned this to you in the email. I do want to end with, since I'm a dad of a daughter, I wanted to end this show with you with what are the memories, what are you grateful for, the things that your dad did that maybe he never knew about?
Oh, that's
And
a good
I'm
one.
gonna cry.
I know, that was a good one.
So, because for me, like I said, this podcast, this show, every little video that I've put on Facebook, online, the thought behind it has always been, I want to leave something for my daughter so she can see, this is where my dad was when he was 40. This is what he was talking about when he was 45. This is what he was doing when he was 50. I just want her to have something. I don't know if she'll go through these videos and get anything out of it. But at least that's the intention that I'm leaving for her. And so one of the things that I wanted to do to end this conversation with you today was like, tell us about your dad. How do you remember him?
I'm so happy you said that. Yeah. In a week, it's going to be 7 years since he's gone. This is interesting because this will circle back to this whole show. So my dad, I'm 52. I'm 50 as well. When I was little and in our Portland days, my dad was an addict. He fell in the late 70s, early 80s, making money. He fell for all the vices. And my mom said no, pushed him out right away. So for 2 years, they co-parented. I remember nothing except both of them loved me and spent time with me regularly. But here's my bit. He said, I choose my family. And because my mom was just like, this is the rules for the family. This is what we got. Thank you very much. Good timing. And he chose us. He cleaned up, and for the rest of his life, he was. So look at my pattern. I picked the addicts, and I kept thinking they're going to choose me. They're going to heal because they're going to choose me in the family and get better. So I never got to tell him that I recognized that in him. But I was daddy's girl. I was his number one defender because my mom gave him a lot of shit. They were together all, 50 plus years. And, But I saw, and he just laughed. He was so happy with his family. And I'm like, you shifted your whole life. You could have gone that way, but you chose us. And I love him for that. He also was the guy at every game, just like you. Every single game, even travel games, because I danced and did pom-poms. Every theater show, everything. He was there with the big VHS recorder. I could count on him. I didn't see all the other family members, but I could count on my dad. And that's priceless. That's absolutely priceless. And that's what you've done too. So that's my two big, and I never got to tell him, thank you for letting me count on you. You know, thank you for showing me what a divine masculine man does. You know, I didn't get to tell him all that, but he sees it, and he brought one to me. So yeah. That's a good question, Rick.
That's awesome.
Jeez.
That's awesome. So with that, we'll end the interview. Thank you, Heidi, for being on the show today as I'm wiping off the tears.
I'm so proud of you, too. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. This is the Single Dad Project podcast channel, whatever you want to call it. We're here for single dads, and obviously for the month of May, we're interviewing all our single mom friends, getting their experiences, and so that we as single dads can learn from them. So again, Heidi, thank you so much. And PJ asked me to say to you, just hang on, because we're going to end the show, but you got to stay.
Okay.
So for everybody else, thank you very much. And check out the Single Dad Project on YouTube. And we're on the other channels. I'm still kind of like figuring out how to get everything posted out there. But thank you for being a part of the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.